Kevin and Amelhyne, you're really welcome here to Leinster House. It's not very often that members of the public get in to this chamber. And the last time we had young people here, and we had them in numbers, was to discuss the climate situation towards the end of 2019. So it's great to see young people here again. And can I just take the opportunity to wish all those young people across the country that are doing Leaving Cert and Junior Cert the very best of good fortune, because they've gone through 2 years of hell, really. It's been schooling and education unlike anything we've seen in this country before. So we really, really do hope that it goes well for all of you.
Thank you so much for having us. Yeah, it's been a challenging 2 years, but look, we're nearly at the end of it now, so it's fantastic. And I suppose I wanted to ask you that, especially over the last 2 years, I've particularly observed a lot of young people having an increase in interest in politics, especially around the Leaving Cert reform, I think. So can I ask how this interest can be encouraged in young people to get involved in politics?
Well, I think it's vitally important that it is encouraged, and you're absolutely right, because there is a heightened awareness, and it's driven by a multiplicity of things. You mentioned the Leaving Cert and reform of Leaving Cert and issues around third level education. That's understandable. But I think there's a real passion among young people about issues around climate change and some of the social change that we've seen affected in Ireland in recent times. How can that be harnessed? I think by politicians making it very clear that we want to hear and we want to listen to what young people have got to say. And I think we have to go a step further. I think we have actually got, as politicians in the system, to work to get more young people actively involved in politics, but also in electoral politics, because we're too old and too grey and too male in this place, and we need to see a lot more young people coming forward and offering themselves for election. And I think the place would only be the better for that.
It's amazing that me and Kevin were given this opportunity to come here. I think that just shows as well that you are also interested and just willing to hear our questions and our voices, which is so empowering, really, as well as we, further education.
I think it's a situation which we've got to work together. I mean, let's never dismiss older people and the knowledge and experience they've got, but let's never ever forget the importance of the vitality and the enthusiasm and the idealism of youth. And I tell you what, we need idealism in abundance, particularly in a place like Leinster House.
Thank you so much.
My first question is, when and why did you become interested in politics? It's a big question.
Well, God, I became interested in politics in 1977 when there was a general election, and there was, for the first time, American razzmatazz. There were campaign buses, there were jingles on the TV, there was election songs being heard, and that kind of caught my attention. And as a teenager, I became passionately interested in the Irish language. And as I looked at the political parties, I came from a very mixed background. My mother was from a Labour Party supporting family. My father came from a Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael family, where his father was Fianna Fáil and his mother was Fine Gael. So really, I could have kind of gone in any direction, but I was attracted to Fianna Fáil because of its stance on the national question, Irish unity, and because it appeared to be very strongly committed to the Irish language.
Can I ask you, is there a certain amount of creativity in your job? And if so, what it is, or is it just very much by the book, if you will?
Yeah, well, I suppose creativity can have very many meanings. I mean, you have got to be creative sometimes in how you bring people with you, how you communicate a message to people. It can be kind of quite different how you communicate a message about, let's say, the environment to a farming and rural community, as distinct with how you communicate it to a group of students in a third level institution. But you need to have creativity as well when it comes to doing our fundamental job, which is about making legislation. So how do you create, how do you carve out the best possible legislation that will help move our country forward, improve the quality of lives of our people and deal with the many, many problems that exist out there. So I think, yes, on every front, a politician, whether dealing with their constituents, whether communicating a message, or whether devising and enacting and moulding legislation, they've got to be creative and they've got to be prepared to take risks as well, because, you know, if you don't take risks, you'll very rarely achieve anything. And good ideas sometimes need to be trialled before we can be certain whether they're good or not.
What is your message to young people who want to be engaged in politics but they don't know where to start? Would you have any tips and advice?
Oh, absolutely. I would think that all politics originates in communities. Yeah. And your community at present might be your school, or it might be your town or village. And I would say get involved in your school community. I mean, be a member of the Students' Council, join some voluntary effort, become involved in extracurricular activity. That's where I came from. I found I wasn't much good at sport, but I was good at organising things. And I mean, go out there then into the community and see what can you do to make the place you live in a better place to live in, to make it a better place for kind of young people of your own age. If there's not enough sporting activity, well, what can you do to augment that? If there's loads of sport but not anything else for those who are not sporty, well, can we set up a youth club? Can we reach out and get support to do that? And it's from that sort of involvement that you can kind of progress into politics. And I think it's far better to be involved in politics than not. And I think it's a matter for the person and their own disposition and their own set of priorities, what political party, if any, they are attracted to, or simply become involved as an independent. Right across the country in councils and here in the Dáil and in the Seann, we have outstanding people who are independents, just as we have outstanding members of political parties. So don't sit on the ditch complaining about how bad everything is without having the guts, and it takes guts, to get involved yourself in trying to make things better.
You visited the Ukrainian president just last week, I believe, and I can see there you're wearing the Ukrainian flag as well on your suit there. But I wanted to ask, with so many Ukrainian refugees now taking refuge in Ireland, we cannot forget the Ukrainian refugees who are now continuing their studies in Ireland. I read an article this week about 3 particular students who are now taking up their studies in the Royal Academy of Music here in Dublin and are continuing their musical studies in violin and in piano. And how do you think their creativity and their musical influence will have an impact on us, on Ireland? Because I think what has happened is just, it cannot be forgotten that there's people coming here and continuing their studies.
I think there's a couple of aspects to that. First and foremost, right throughout the country, Ukrainian families are arriving and they're looking to gain access to primary schools, to secondary schools, to universities. I've an involvement in education in my constituency, and I have a simple message that I've communicated to the schools I'm involved in, that we might be full, but no matter how many Ukrainians turn up, we've got to find space for them. We've got to include them, because their circumstances is unlike anything any of our students have ever experienced. In terms of their performance within the education system, whether it's in the world of music, and there are hugely talented Ukrainian musical artists, I think they're going to enrich the schools and the universities and the arts colleges, because their experience will inevitably temper their attitudes, their imaginations, their ambitions, and the type of work that they will produce. You can't emerge from the middle of a war zone without seeing the world differently, and whether you express that vision in the form of paint or sculpture or music or poetry or writing, it's inevitably going to be impacted.
What's your favourite part of your job, your favourite aspect of the job?
Oh, This is my second term as Comhairle. In the first term, we had a minority government. We were in a situation where it was very important to bring people together from all sides, because you could only get legislation through if both government and opposition worked together. So I really enjoyed that sort of trying to build collegiality, and at the same time trying to reform how we do our business here, trying to move the methodologies and the systems into the 21st century, while at the same time retaining that which was good from the past. There's another aspect to this that is behind the scenes and was absent during COVID, but it's what I call parliamentary diplomacy. It's where, as Comhairle and Comhairle the Seán, you're constantly meeting incoming political and business and community delegations from all around the world who are coming to Ireland for whatever the purpose might be. And the tradition is, when they come here to Leinster House, they're greeted and met and have discussions with either the Comhairle or the Comhairle the Seán. And that can also then give rise to reciprocal invitations. So it was arising out of our invitation to President Zelensky to talk to us here virtually that I got an invitation to go to Kyiv. So that sort of interacting with international delegations and other parliaments and politicians, and finding areas of common interest where we can work together to make things happen.
I have a podcast called Talk About It, and I asked this question to everyone that I interview, and I was very intrigued when I heard that I was going to be interviewing you to ask you this question, and that is, what is a quote that you live by or you particularly enjoy, and why?
Do unto others as you would have them do to you.
Okay. Can I ask why that one? Why that?
Because it is fundamentally about respect. And if you respect other people and show them respect, you'll get that back in spades. And if we respected each other while we work together, we'd achieve far more than if we're simply trying to steal a march or get a step ahead of the other person. There's phenomenal power in collective action, and you only get collective action when you have a willingness to cooperate, and that comes from having a sense of mutual respect.
What do you think are the main challenges for the youth in Ireland today?
I think that you're going to emerge from your secondary school and from college or from apprenticeships into a world and a land of opportunity. This country has shown amazing resilience. We've had some dreadfully deep recessions, but we've come out of them stronger and more determined. Who'd have thought, after 2 years of the plague of COVID, that we'd find ourselves here with full employment? We need 50,000 workers to come into this country to help us develop the construction industry. 50,000 workers. That's a huge number of people when you consider that our workforce is only 2.3 million. And I think for young people emerging, there's been parents of my generation have wanted our kids to think only about university and academic pursuits. We need to cop ourselves on and realise that not everybody needs to be teachers or scientists or doctors or whatever, that it is every bit as good, will give us good in earning, good in income, good quality of life, to be a really good plumber or a really good electrician. And we need to encourage our young people to look to apprenticeships, look to self-employment, look to becoming young entrepreneurs. Gosh, look at the number of young people, say, in the information technology area, who have become not just Irish leaders, but world leaders. Look at the Collisons. Look at Paddy Cosgrave, for example. I mean, there are lots of people out there that have distinguished themselves through developing their natural entrepreneurial skills.
Are there any initiatives within your own constituency, South Kildare, to encourage and support creativity for young people?
Yeah, we have a very good arts programme running there. We have a very good county ETB where Wicklow and Kildare are joined, and there's a big focus on youth work and youth facilities. We have Kildare Youth Services working in many centres across the county. And I think schools themselves are now realising that it's not just enough to teach a curriculum kind of 9 to 4, but that they need to give added value to their students, so that in Kildare town, for example, where I live, our school is now teaching Mandarin as an option. Yeah. In a primary school I'm involved in, they've established a chess club. So younger kids come in and learn chess, which is quite a skill to accomplish, and it'll help them in later life. So yeah, I think there's a realisation that sport is vitally important, but that not everyone will be interested in sport, and that they are every bit as entitled to be looked after and provided for as the sportsmen and women.
There are so many films, like Kevin did a short film this year called Sunday, and as well a more popular feature film is The Iron Lady, and these films concentrate on like political stories. So do you think these political stories and films should be encouraged, and do you think that more people get interested in politics or the history even of politics through these films?
Well, look, I've yet to see Kevin's film, so I'll tell you whether that's helpful after I've seen it or not. But I suppose dramatisation of political events and all of that helps to tell the story of politicians and what they're setting out to achieve. I think the commonality of the appearance of politicians in kind of series and dramas and what have you tend to focus on the roguishness and the duplicity that goes on in politics. And you very rarely get to see in the world of cinema or TV the sincere sort of politician, the person who is a conviction politician who got involved in their parliament, whether it's Westminster or the Duma. Well, there mightn't be too many idealistic ones in the Duma, but wherever it might be. But they got involved to do good, to pursue some particular set of objectives. But that tends not to be the stereotypical portrayal of a politician in movies or on the stage or on TV. And I think that's kind of regrettable. And if that has an impact, the impact is to dissuade people, I think, from becoming involved. In the big areas of the Iron Lady, I suppose it did serve to give a sense of the enormous influence that Margaret Thatcher had. More recently, you've had the Crown series, which focused heavily on Thatcher, the Thatcher years, and then the relationship between Queen Elizabeth and Margaret Thatcher. And I suppose you saw towards the end of that the humanity of the Iron Lady, who felt betrayed by her colleagues and felt kind of beaten down by them. So there's no harm to have that sort of humanity of a political people revealed.
Yeah. Do you think there should be more of that humanity in films like that?
Yeah, I think there should be more honest portrayal of people, that the politician shouldn't be characteristically or typically the bad guy, the corrupt guy, the person or the lady who's buyable. People with principle. Look at Martin Luther King. look at Nelson Mandela. Well, there are people in every parliament in the world that are people of principle, and they deserve to have their stories told.
As a bonus question, I love movies, so I was just wondering, what's your favourite movie?
I love movies as well.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I'm torn on that, because if I go back to the old classics, the old classic movies, I absolutely love Casablanca, and I have seen it over and over and over again. But in more modern times, maybe you might call them modern, but I think Dances with Wolves with Kevin Costner was exceptionally good. And I think The Last of the Mohicans with Daniel Day-Lewis was really, really good. And my wife dragged me off to see Little Women with Saoirse Ronan last year, and I absolutely enjoyed it. But then Saoirse Ronan is exceptional.
Yeah.
She's she just is so versatile. It's impossible not to be impressed by her.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Can I just say to you that I hope the next time you two guys return to this chamber, it'll be to take up official seats on either side of the House, because it's young people like you we need.
Thank you very
in numbers.
much.
All right.
Thank you. Very nice to meet you.
You too.
It's a lovely
You
pleasure.
too.
Thank you so
You too.
much.
Thank you.